Great. Good morning. Good morning. Good evening, everyone. Calling to order today's Borough of Conshohocken Authority monthly general meeting. We have no public comment today prior to the meeting. No public comment. Okay. So let us start with roll call. Christine here. George. Here. Jack. Here. Tina. Here. All right, let's do the pledge to the flag, if you don't mind. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So first item on our agenda this evening is a review and approval of the meeting minutes from January 28, 2025. Has everyone had a chance to review any edits or updates that need to be made to the minutes? Hearing nothing, I need a motion to approve the January 28 meeting minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next item on the agenda is our financial report section. Any questions related to the financial reports as presented to us this evening? Hearing no questions on the financial reports, let me just get to my report page here. Hang on, let me get to the bottom number. It's small, I gotta squint. So what I'm looking for this evening is approval for our financial statements in the amount of $318,691.54. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Can we do a roll call vote, please? Christine?
Am I saying yes? Yes.
Jack?
Yep. Yes.
George?
Yes.
Tina? Yes. Okay. That is 4 ayes. Motion carries.
Could I make one statement for we did finalize all our payments for our subcontract, the borough, for the stormwater. If you see that in the billing of $88,000, and we actually had a surplus of about $170,000. So it's actually good news for only 3 quarters of billing. So we're up to date and things are in motion. I just want to make a mention of that because it was a big deal for instituting that fee last year and where we stand currently.
That's great.
I do have a question. How did we make out with Aqua reimbursing for the water main break? Is that still in progress?
It's still in progress.
Okay.
That's
Aqua
great.
does nothing quickly. Doesn't mean they're not gonna do it. It
I
means
should
they
know
don't do
that.
anything quickly.
Except for the no bills.
That's right. That they're very good at.
Yes.
And that 100, you said it was 120 surplus?
175.
75. That's like for future.
The goal is to build a capital reserve for items as we proceed in the future, which it's going to take quite a few years till we get that built, but after, I'm just glad we got all the items paid for the subcontracted part of back to the borough.
Yeah, no, that's great. And we budgeted for a deficit of about $750,000, I think. So that's great.
Yeah, so things are working.
Is it 3 quarters?
We only got, remember, till we got everything instituted, to everything got in motion in the late March. And then you had to,
It's different than this year, calendar year.
the started date was, until we got everything organized and we couldn't bill the way that our billing cycle was. You couldn't bill to the services were provided.
Okay,
Okay?
thanks.
Right.
Okay. Next item on the agenda this evening is our solicitor's report.
No action.
I'm sorry. Before we go to your report, do I have a motion to accept our financial reports?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No problem. It'll be brief. No action items this month. In addition to our report that is included in the packet, we've been working with Brent on updating our offer letters to new employees as we're looking for employees, and we've been working with Brent and Shannon regarding separation from an employee who is retiring or resigning from the authority, and we'll be processing all of that with Brent and Shannon in the coming days.
I know that we discussed it last month about getting a quote on the cybersecurity.
We did. We reached out to our insurance broker. It's not Cohen Partners anymore. It used to be Cohen Partners. They're under a new name. And I believe they've been in touch with Shannon about getting the information that they need to give us a quote. So that's moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions for the solicitor's report? Hearing no questions, do I have a motion to accept the solicitor's report this evening?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda as we roll through here is our engineer's report.
Yep. First thing is a draft of the Chapter 94 report. This is kind of our annual report card of how are we doing. And as I explained last year, due to the number of apartments that we did, I'm going to start looking at a flow per EDU basis. So this year, while our annual average flow increased by 100, so this year, while our annual average flow increased by 100,000 gallons, our average flow per EDU remained at 127, which is 127 gallons per day per connection, which is exactly where our 5-year average is. So while we went up by 100,000, we went there. Other thing that I look at is the ratio of our max 3 consecutive monthly flow. A good system has around a 20%. So 1.2 is good. Above that, you start to work on I&I. You're at 5%. You're at a 1.05. And you can see, I passed out a chart that kind of shows the dash line of our annual average and how we trend down through there. It's pretty much a straight line. I have many authorities that their flows would double during their max month and come down through. So that's an attribute, to your staff. If you look at the next page over that I hand out, this is a chart. Basically, we've updated the top part of the chart. We're still working on the ratios down at the bottom. But I just wanted to see, our flows were 1,021,000, 1,070,000, 1.1 million, 1.1085, and then we went up by 100,000 this year. But we had the connections, and that's why we look at the flow per EDU. The next chart is from last year's Chapter 94 report. So how good are we doing at projecting what we think the flows are going to be? Well, you can see that we were at slightly below 1.2 is what our projection was for 2024. And our actual annual average flow was 1.186 million gallons. So this tells me, I always look back to see, hey, how are we doing? And is this a useful tool in projecting moving to the forward? And you can see the above is, the red dash line is our rated capacity of the treatment plant. So, we're at less than half, or approximately half of our rated capacity. The next page over is what causes me a little bit of concern, is this is our organic loadings for the last 5 years. This year, our loadings are up significantly. We've always been around that 2.5 or 2,500 gallons per day, or pounds per day. This year we went to 3,700. That's a significant increase. So if you look at the annual average load from 23 to 24, just look at all of them. 2020 were 2,263, 2,173, 2,975, 2,600. Now we're at 3,700. That's causing us to peel out and look into the data. What's causing that? It's because our flow per the pounds per day per EDU is also up significantly. So it's not that we had more people. That was one of my initial thoughts. one of the things, we're looking at is what's the impact of our sludge processing on it? Are we set, is there something going back through there that we would be catching in our sample from our decanning? Or something that we're doing internally that would skew that? What's also concerning is that my maximum pounds per day is 5,500. Our maximum month, which is basically 4 samples that are taken during the month, is 5,318. Now, you're seeing raw data. I'm going to go through this as part of my next detailed analysis and say, is there a statistical anomaly that I can throw out? Something that's double that I can't explain. So DEP, I'm going to pull this out as a statistical anomaly. So, and then based on this, but you can see, my ratio of max month to annual average, it's 1.4. My 5-year average is 1.4. So it's like it got skewed or phase shifted up evenly. The difference between my peaks and my valleys and my average stayed the same. So I just wanted to kind of make you aware of this, hey, how do we look at this? And obviously, I didn't include the chart of my 2023 because we're significantly higher. I thought I was going to be somewhere around 2,800 pounds per day, and we're almost 1,000 pounds higher. So that's why we do this report, because it makes us look at our data from 6,000 feet. You don't see it when you're reporting daily numbers, but you do see it when you're kind of in there, so.
Remind me, the organic load is what?
It is pounds of BOD in pounds per day. So this is really every person puts out 1.7 pounds per day or per capita of BOD. That's the strength of our organic waste. So really, where does that impact you? Is do we have enough blowers and enough biological treatment? Am I giving it too much food? It's a measurement of, do I have can my bugs eat that food?
So it's the bulk of
Yes.
what's in the,
Yes, it's,
Crumbs.
I'm trying to, or that is how much food I'm bringing in compared to my ability to eat that and treat that food, the strength of
It's
it.
like the inverse of how much this will affect the stream downstream or whatever.
Yeah, and be able to meet my discharge. So there's 2 things that impact us, is the hydraulic load and the organic load. So I have to be able to get it through my plant and have it be in my plant long enough for the bugs to eat, to do the process, and then am I giving them enough food? So I have 6 people at my table, I need 1 turkey, I don't need 3 turkeys. If I put 3 turkeys in, it's not gonna people aren't gonna eat it. As a result, it will be discharged to the river.
so we measure this monthly.
Weekly.
We
And I
measure this
give you
weekly,
the-
and you give
the
us monthly
influent load
values.
Is measured weekly, and then I use the average of those 4 or 5 samples in there. So I wanted to give you the raw data. I will now go back and sometimes if we had a huge storm, it would skew the data, and I could say, my flow is always there, and my flow that day was 4 million gallons. So maybe that's a statistical anomaly, and it's not representative of my average daily flow. And I will call out if I pull a data point and explain it in the report. I didn't see a lot of them. If I have one that's 1,000 milligrams per liter, everything else is 250, I can throw that out. But if I have 1,000 and 870 and 860, and there's a lot of them up in there, I can't say that's a statistical anomaly. It's something that's happening. So now we're working with the staff. Is there something going on at the treatment plant where we have an internal recycle load that we're capturing? Or is there somebody, a new user? Is there a soda manufacturer that I don't know about that's dumping soda and a high carbon strength weight? So when you get strengths like this, you normally look for dairy waste, blood, butcher waste, alcohol, or soda. They're your normal things that contribute because you don't have a lot of different industry. You're basically food service. You don't have somebody that is manufacturing a polymer or something like that would be giving me a chemical load. So it was statistically notable.
It's statistically notable at the end of the calendar year. Is there somehow you could have seen this mid-year that would have changed any decision process mid-year? Like, has this gotten away from us now that you now have to chase it? Could you have found it sooner? Like, I just don't know what the
Well,
process is
I'll go, the
for.
plant tells us what it needs, and we saw the plant reacting differently which we actually ran 3 trains. And obviously, what's unique about us, even the loading, we're producing less sludge out the back end, which you'd say if you have more loading, we're gonna produce more sludge. It's a direct correlation, but we have all these things that we're doing better. So there's a lot of things, as Fred's explaining, we're gonna,
There's a lot of
we have to look
factors
just
that we
like.
just have to
I'll put
study.
it- We got, could it be analytical error? We have issues with labs. Fred and I talked this last week. We were splitting samples up. We already have Ed staff out. We put fingers out everywhere sampling all across the town. And we're gonna start determining, do we have it outside or is it inside? So it's gonna take us a couple steps. We'll probably within the next 3 weeks actually start finding what's going on. There's a whole thing, and I want to throw theories because we did, as talking to my lead operator Keith last week, we did for short durations of time have to turn through 3 trains on. And I'm not going to go into all science, but even the first RBCs were tons of loading on them, which shows that we were growing a lot of media. So Fred and I are going back and forth, and we already start off our conversation last week.
And that doesn't surprise me.
So
at all,
are we
because
unhealthy in our tanks, or are we?
We're still healthy, we're still meeting.
Okay.
the
Yeah, we're still
permit.
fine.
Okay.
The first thing is that if we weren't meeting permit and my effluent limits were going up, the fact that we had to turn 3 trains on didn't surprise me. We never decanted and worked on our sludge process before. That was a change we did. So basically there, what we're doing is we're gonna treat it twice. So instead of having it go out in sludge and you pay for disposal, we're gonna run it around and have the biology eat it and eat it and eat it. Well, as a result, you put more load back in, but our influence sample shouldn't be noticed. So one of the things that they're gonna do is they're gonna go to West Conshohocken. So I can isolate my system pretty easily. West Conshohocken all comes from a pump station. I can take a grab sample there, the same day I take it at my treatment plant. Am I proportionally higher at the treatment plant than I am at what? That eliminates West Conshohocken. There's not much flow that comes from Plymouth, but at our meter pit that comes down, I can take a grab sample on that same day there. That will eliminate Plymouth. Now, it's harder in Conshohocken because we're in roads. This sampler looks like a 5-gallon bucket or a 55-gallon drum that sits up above. So I got to find a place that kind of isolates the east side from the west side. And once I do that, then I'll go the north to south. So if it is not an internal recycle, that, is there some drain that we don't know about, that when we're decanting, it's coming around and we're catching it? I just want to let you know that, hey, this is why we do this Chapter 94 report. And if had we seen an issue that wasn't explainable, we would do this to the 6-month mark and get ahead of it. If I started seeing my effluent limits going up, immediately dollar
So
sign.
we have systems and processes that would catch something that was very
That
out of
impacts
range.
our
during-
treatment
right.
process, yes, and that impacts our loading. Well, we knew we had to put 3 treatment systems on. Well, we're decanting. That was a logical explanation. There wasn't a reason to peel the onion back from it. But at the end of the year, and honestly, trends like this happen, where we had real high flows first 3 months. Maybe it's washing that down. But then when you start to see it, it's just a cumulative impact of it. And it wasn't like I had one high month. My annual average to max month is a 1.4. My 5-year average 1.4. If I had a month that was triple, immediate red flag, let's start doing this. So the indicators are we had the checks and balances and we're catching it, but we're making sure it doesn't impact us.
Do you look at new facilities or new companies that came into the borough for that year against a prior year that would help give a window if that was a factor?
The answer to that question is no, we don't. But yes, we will, because we have no knowledge other than
Right.
driving by, because I don't see use and occupancy or change of ownership.
Right, but is there a request you can make to the borough that on an annual basis you give us the list of new?
We could, but what I would rather do is, rather than go on a wild goose chase, I would rather spend a little bit of money sampling at the locations that I described, isolate it down, and then just ask for any changes in that area. So that way I don't have there's no reason to analyze people that aren't impacting me. And go down, I want to know where's it impacting me, and then I want to focus on them. It could be something as simple as, somebody is a craft beer distributor, and at the end of the year, at the end of the week, they get a bunch, or on my sample day, they dump old kegs. They just dump all the old kegs out, and they say, all right, the beer distributor shows up, and I got a quarter keg of this craft beer left, we're just gonna open it up, give them the empty keg, and get a new keg. You're such a tight system that it doesn't take a lot of an alcohol. You know, you don't really have a butcher shop. Like, do you? Yes, but not really. You know, this isn't, rural Pennsylvania where we're processing dairy waste or you're slaughtering 30 cows. You got a butcher shop that's taking a side of beef and cutting it up into custom meats. So,
It's, those 4 samples per week, or 4 samples per month, those are composites?
yes, they are composites, and it's a weekly composite on the same,
Two per week also.
Oh, 2
oh,
per
is it
week.
2 for influent?
So it just
Yeah,
means
for
they,
both.
just
Oh,
means
for
they
both.
collect all day
Yeah.
at the same, like, per hour. So if you just tried to grab, you could pick up a
No,
bad
there's not
spike.
grabs there, and you have a monthly average. So it's A, it's a composite, and then B, you have the 8 samples.
Just curious, so once it's isolated and you've identified that it's this area of Conshohocken, let's just say, and you go to the borough to see if there was anything new there, so the goal is to kind of identify the source,
Yes. So,
and then what happens? Like,
Well-
what, if you decide, okay, yeah, it was, the Boathouse and Great American Pub dumping kegs, what
So-
happens?
the first thing you do is you try to work with them to see if there's a simple thing that they can do. Ultimately, when they're a customer of ours, we have rules and regulations. In the rules and regulations, there's a maximum concentration that they're allowed to do. If they're above that, we have what's known as a municipal industrial pretreatment program. They would then have to treat down through the MIP. Right now, it's, Hercules,
Harass.
I always mispronounce her name, Chemical is the only one that's really on there. But you could clearly institute your municipal industrial pretreatment program to bring the strength of their waste down. And a lot of times that is, it's usually grease that I deal with, quite honestly, more so than there. But there, it's just like, listen, you can't dump your kegs down, for lack of a better term, or whatever is causing that. So, but we always try to work with them, because a lot of times they just don't know they're impacting us. They just think,
Dump it down the drain.
yeah, dump it down the drain, not put in the storm sewer, dump it down the drain. It's,
But they get a notice through the mail, they get
no,
somebody
we would
knocking on
sit down
the
and
door?
talk to them. And
Okay.
so really, I've kind of simplified it. Once I identify to a quadrant, depending on the size of that quadrant, I'll look, is there any obvious people? When I find that obvious person, I'm gonna put a sampler out in front of them, and I'm gonna have sample results that come from them and very few people, so that way they don't feel singled out. And then we're gonna ask to meet with them. We're gonna sit down and say, hey, listen, this is what we found. This is organically how we've gone through it. We don't know, we're not accusing you. We're just trying to figure it out before it impacts the plant. And you talk through it. 90% of the time, it works out well.
I mean, if it's
There's
one,
no guarantees.
if it's one contributor, it's going to be super obvious. 'Cause
Yeah.
This is a very large increase, so,
It's statistically significant.
yeah.
And we're starting a process to go down through. I don't want to blame our contributors. I don't want to blame an operational thing. There could be, some internal thing that we're doing, now that we're going to look at it and come back to you. And it's not a quick answer. We may get lucky. We may go out and send these samples. But even when we do the samples, a lot of times I want to do it at least twice before I start chasing it. It's not impacting the treatment plant, and you don't want to falsely accuse someone. The worst thing that you can do in this situation is, I know it's that Porta-John guy. I know it's him. No. Let's get enough facts that we're not going off half-cocked, and we can have when somebody asks us, present them with facts and explain the procedure that we went through.
I just want to back up for 1 second.
Yes.
We're talking about this 5319 number, right?
Right, the whole thing.
The whole column there.
So this is 3.7 compared to
Oh,
2.6.
okay.
So it's up like,
Right.
And you can see by looking at the monthly flows or the monthly pounds, we were from 4,000, we came down a couple times, but we were
Still
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
they're
we-
not, this is not one or two events.
Except
This
for
is-
April.
Yeah, this is a routine, event, but that April, what that could have been was we could have sampled during days of high flows where it diluted the sample and we didn't see it. Or it could have not been on our sample day. Like, there's a lot of reasons. And that's where, but when it's consistently high, and like I said, if you look at the numbers, there's not one month that really jumps out at you, probably other than September, that's like, it's 8,000, holy shit, like, we doubled in a month. What changed from last month to this month? And, but you can see, it actually started in December of last year. Like, it started in December of last year.
Yeah, you
So-
had a 30% increase almost in December.
Yeah, but like, and in most of my townships, you're probably the exception. Almost all of my townships, December is a significantly higher loading month. Why? People have off 2 weeks for Christmas. Everyone is baking. Everyone is eating at home. Everyone is doing that. So when I get a very high December, that's people staying home for Christmas and family time and cookies and, cake. So.
Is it, so we only have the one industrial discharger. Do we have any, how often do they report anything to us?
Twice a year.
Okay. Is it worth,
Asking
them on that?
They're there because they produce dyes.
right, so
They're a coloring thing.
No
They don't
COD
produce
or-
high-strength waste. They're a coloring thing. Now, do I know absolutely every, shop that's in some of these industrial buildings? No, because they're all subleases. Like, I don't know. I know what the sign says out front, but I don't know who they're subleasing these buildings to,
I mean, just, yeah, how, we're relying on industries to self-report then to
Yeah,
part of this
and technically,
process.
to be triggered for me to do it, they have to be what's known as a significant industrial user, which means they have to either have certain, chemicals, metals, or more than 25,000 gallons a day of industrial waste. We don't have that. 20 years ago, we probably had a lot of them. 30 years ago, probably had a lot of them.
How do
don't.
do we know that though? Like, how do we know that they're sub 25,000 gallons per day? Do they, just from their reports, or we don't have information like,
No, we do, and I did an audit for you guys about 4 years ago now, where we looked at to see if anybody was even close, and no one was even close.
Yeah.
So we did an audit to identify the true number of residential units and the true number of there. We found out that some restaurants probably used a lot more than they had bought, caused a lot of publicity, but other than the restaurants, no one was using more than they were supposed to.
that's set up, the 25, is that federal, or how do we choose 25, or that's a set?
I didn't, the EPA said that, and that's how they define that's one of the criteria that they define a significant industrial user, which is a defined term, and there's a number of criteria. So you can be it and be under 25,000. If you have 25,000 or more of industrial waste, even if it's washdown water, you get hit with a MIP. And then I have to submit this to both the DEP and the EPA every year as part of that, and we do a spot check. But I can't tell you that, I don't go door to door,
Yeah.
but I will tell you that very few big customers don't self-report because they will lose their insurance, and their insurance company makes sure that they do that. Because if they are a significant industrial user and they don't report it to their insurance agency, and they aren't part of a MIP, and there's a spill, they're not covered. So I found people are more honest, but I can't. Yeah.
If AmerisourceBergen brought more of their business over here would that,
Absolutely, it would. If they did a testing lab up in there, or they were doing pilot tests, or they had a floor became research and development, absolutely.
so would it benefit us to find out from the borough if we're getting more money in taxes per
We
FTE? Like, should we look into that kind of stuff?
Yes. So what I wanted to do is I first wanted to bring it to you guys. Once my board knew about it, so you didn't hear about it secondhand, we're then going to sample and check the internal thing, and then we're going to reach out to the borough and then we're going to continue to do our sampling. So there's no good recipe. It's a little bit of, you try a lot of things until you find a common thread, and then you go through there. I have many
I just know that they
municipalities.
were phasing in how they were bringing folks into this location, and did that happen in 2024 where there was a big change? I just don't.
And even then, it's a matter of getting to someone to say, hey, listen, we have a sample result. We want to talk. We're not going after you.
Right.
We got to figure this out. But ultimately, I can't tell somebody that it doesn't lead to an enforcement action.
Right.
I can't say, hey, we're just going to be buddy-buddy and we're going to all work this out. No, we got rules and regulations. It impacts our treatment plant. I have the health, safety, and welfare of the entire community. So while we want to work with you, we do have rules that have to ultimately be enforced. We want you to come into compliance, but if not, I've learned not to be.
I just want to open up that we can use the borough in some of this process.
We will. They will be a very valuable
Okay.
tool. And we're not afraid to go in there. Like I said, I didn't want to reach out to them. I wanted to get first to Brent, then to my board, and then we'll,
Okay.
I don't want you to hear, at a board meeting, well, the authority, Freddie reached out to me wondering about this, and you're like, what? So.
Great. Thank you.
What do you guys think? I mean,
I'm not shooting any theories right now, because it could be down to, I've chased stuff this for years. If we haven't worked at low, then you'll find it. Or number two, what we're doing internally, we're going out and figuring, we're going out and put samples all over, I call the fingers, go out to all these different locations, and even splitting samples, because I can't, and I'll have to tell her I don't want this in it, but there's been times when labs can even have the issue of doing this. So there's like 10 things we gotta look at.
Yeah, there is.
It can be as simple as a lab. I mean, a couple of years ago, we were getting fecal hits, and we get a call from from the DEP saying, "Are you getting hits?" I got hits on all our projects. It ends up being analytical, and the lab might not pick it up. So I don't want to go into theory. I want the data to tell us what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And
but I guess the question I'm asking, do you feel it at the plant? I mean, you put the extra load on.
we put the extra load in the springtime, but we don't see it. I mean, we're not seeing our effluent quality.
Nope.
Our effluent's in good shape. If we had an effluent quality, all bets would have been off. We'd have been, listen, we'd be all over this, and then, as he's saying, enforcement, if it affects our effluent, there'll be a much more reaction from our end, because that turns into an EPA issue and DEP.
Because a lot of plants, we'd have like, your aeration rates would be way up, but
Yeah.
for us, since we mix or get air by moving the RBCs,
Yeah.
we don't actually see I'm just trying to think, is there anything else that we would see? It would be nice to know if you guys are like, it's almost certainly real, at least then these feelers are.
We saw sporadic needs of putting the third train on. It wasn't anything consistent.
pretty
And
good.
obviously, we had very low flows at very warm temperatures, which the plant runs even more efficiently at those times of year. So,
And we started recycling, decanning a lot more of our sludge. So it made sense that we're internally recycling a lot.
But this is an influent parameter, not a,
Exactly, but I'm
Unless
saying
you're-
why the third train didn't trigger us.
oh, yeah, in the past, yeah.
That's why it didn't trigger us to do a deeper dive. And none of the numbers are, until we got to September, were that high.
Yeah.
But it's something that we'll probably monitor quarterly now, just until we get it resolved, and report back to you.
Yeah, nothing got changed around that sample location. We didn't move a new pipe somewhere nearby or take something offline near it or anything. Yeah, okay, so it's probably pretty consistent.
we started immediately, last week I started making things in motion, and after him and I caucused, and we're sampling as we speak.
Yep.
We're splitting samples starting Friday, right? Correct. We're ready to start splitting samples Friday with two different labs. Because I want to check that. We throw that. That's one of the theories that could be out.
There's a lot of things, and I've learned not to go with a preconceived notion or a theory. I let the data tell me what to look for.
Yeah, as long as whenever you're running the sample catches whatever, if it's a batch cycle in an industrial plant or something like that.
That's a
then
chance.
I can
That's
never
why I
catch
said
it.
it
If my
saves things for
24-hour
years.
composite's catching it, we may
Hopefully,
end
yeah.
up splitting our samples. That's something I did in another place. I have a, daylight sample and a nighttime sample.
Yeah.
And then I instead of doing composite, I send them both out. And a lot of times what I'll do is, we'll sometimes do samples on non-sampling days. So that way I don't have to comply with DEP rules. It's more of an investigative thing to try to find it. But you're right, I may never track it down. It could be somebody that's giving me 10,000 gallons in 15 minutes, and if I don't catch that slug coming through the plant, but it's happening all year, so we're gonna find, I don't know, we're gonna find something.
We don't have any like TDS meters or anything, do we? Anything else that's like
We
real time?
monitor it, total suspended solids coming in as a grab sample.
Grab.
Yeah, that's really,
Anything real time at all? Any measurement?
no, I don't think not on the
Gauge or
influent.
anything?
Yeah, we're not like a chemical company that
Yeah,
we would
no.
run, like a continuous pH meter to see if somebody dumped an acid. And I don't know how I'm not aware of a continuous organic strength test that you could run,
Yeah.
you know, and it's not
Kinda
COD.
is, but yeah.
Yeah,
I-
so.
yeah.
Oh,
Nothing cheap to the,
well, and nothing that would stay in calibration,
yeah.
you know.
Cool.
We good with that one? Okay. Just a couple other things. The liner project, we did get the maintenance funds from the company that we had they tried to give me a maintenance fund that expired already. So, the same way we rejected their change orders, we've rejected that and said that, you know, that it's based by the contract on the release of the last payment, which we just made like a month and a half ago. Influent pump station control panel, Keystone is hitting that full speed. Now they got 70% complete designs of the overall electrical, which means the electrical design, we did get to 70%, so they stayed on schedule. And then what we've had them now do is go out to contractors and get pricing, since the equipment costs have gone up significantly since the time we got the grant. They also, as part of that, they went back out to the firm that did the evaluation of the subsurface switchgear. Used to be known as Reuter Haney. Well, they came back and said before, hey, you can replace the components of this. They're now saying it's kind of deteriorated since then, and the replacement components aren't that good. The cost of the replacement components is as high as a new thing, just buy all new. So I said, well, all right, but now I need to go back and update the entire construction budget, because that's more than the original line item. What do I have to cut out in order to do that? I don't disagree with your recommendation, but I got a budget. So if I'm doing this, then I've got to reduce this or phase it. So that's really where we're at. So they went out, they first got equipment pricing, and it was higher, but now we got installation pricing. Now having to put the entire package together for me, just before they complete their design and go from 70% on. I don't want them to complete something or not implement a phasing if that's the next step that I have to do. That completes my very short report that I thought tonight.
One more question on the low one.
Which one is that?
The first figure of the, you can pass along to us, from the extra, yeah, the hydraulic load.
Of the 5, that was 2023's?
Predicted, 2023.
Last year's.
Why is it up and down for the previous year? With our projections, we're not seeing any up and down, or you're saying that's just the average? You're still seeing expecting seasonal up and downs? Is that right?
Yes. So from 2019 to 2024, the information that you kind of, through 23, that's actual monthly data.
Yep.
Data points that I put in. Whereas when I do my projections, I use my average flow per EDU times the number of EDUs I'm projecting.
Yep.
And so it's a constant for each year. And
Yep.
that basically projects how many new connections I'm looking at. And we went back through the dedications to confirm the number of connections that we made. So we went back through, hey, who all do we accept dedication of, and redid that. And we have one big jump coming up in the future, and that's it. But really, what I want to see here is this report, can I rely on that? So that's why I gave you this example of, this is what I said in last year's report, I think I'm going to do this year, based on the number of apartments and everything that I connected, and I came right in on the money. So I always do that to say, you know, is this reliable or not reliable? It's what level of reliability, you know, it is. And that's more of a quality control of the data that I do. You're nowhere near your limit. So do I really need to do that? Well, no, but that's, the data is only as good as you can rely on it. So you got to do that almost like an audit of your data. So that's why we do it.
Well, right, if we're close, we're not close on hydraulic, but we're close on organics, then now it,
Exactly. And that's where, you know, that's where most years I really don't go over the organics. We're not really close to it, you know, under half. And historically, if you look at it, I was about 50% of my organic loading and 50% of my hydraulic loading. Good. You know, they were both right there, you know. It wasn't, now I'm outpacing my organic. Technically, if you get over the 5,500, I'm in an existing organic overload.
Yeah.
Not a projected, but an existing organic, which causes me planning approval issues going with other new projects going forward.
You know what I mean? So we'll see.
Any other questions on the engineer's report? Hearing no other questions, do I have a motion to accept the engineer's report?
Make the motion to accept.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is our operation manager's report.
Okay, that's my report. I had a little report at the end about, Brent and I went to Thaddeus Stevens 2 weeks ago for a job fair. So this was really based towards students that are finishing up their automotive, mechanical, diesel mechanics, and collision repair. So a lot of them were wondering what we were doing there, what's wastewater doing here. And then we just right into our spiel. So told them how many motors we have besides our 7 automobiles and our heavy equipment, you know, the blowers and the pumps, and they started catching on, and we had a board there listing all the benefits and the perks of working here. And so it's a 2-year program, so we targeted not only the people that are graduating this May, but also the first-year people for possible interns this summer. We found the first 2 young men we spoke to were right across the river in Penn Valley. The other one was in Germantown. We were afraid going out to Lancaster, we're going to find people from out there. But we've, I think the last person I spoke to is from Malvern, so that was promising. So we got 18 resumes, and I think we got 3 or 4 interns on the clipboard we had signed up there. So that was really good. I thought we were really well received.
And we actually I got to talk to the head of the program out there as well, and so there's correspondence going back between both of us. I mean, obviously, you can go, we're gonna have an open house for them coming as well.
March 13th, that's their spring break. So I'm going to send them all invitations and reminders for that also, so they can just come toward the plant.
That's great.
Cool.
Well done.
And the other thing I had was, as you might know, Karen Weiss, the Plymouth meeting manager, township manager, she retired, I think, the end of last month. So I reached out to the new manager, Matt West, and we got together today. I gave him a tour of the plant. And I went over a lot of the capital improvements that we've done in the past, as well as some of the stuff we're looking at in the near future. So he got to really put his eyes on these things coming up. Like, he didn't know what the RVCs were, you know, the odor control. I showed him about the electrical substation. So he was really, seemed really receptive and really impressed. He very complimentary. So I went over some of the budgeting thing. He really didn't get into that. I'm sorry, the billing. I know it's kind of weird with the deduct meters, so he didn't really look at that yet. I'm sure he's got a lot of other stuff on his plate just in his first month. So I'm going to send him like the last billing we sent them. Just so I showed him on the map how the deduct meters and the zones and everything. So he seemed really receptive to that. So we'll start going back and forth on that. So. And that concludes my report.
Any questions on the operation manager report? Hearing no questions, do I have a motion to accept the operation manager report?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And next up on the agenda is our executive director's report.
So I think, and Frank can always chime in this, I think this is the coldest spell that we've been in, at like a 6 to 8 week window of very cold weather. Honestly, I think it's late 90s, like 98. Showing my age here for wastewater, it's like 98. So what's unique about our plant, obviously we have our RBCs undercover. It helps us out tremendously. And we made it through. The biggest issue is, if it's an issue, is our digester obviously is not doing much right now. It's not. I mean, it's just like when you're cold, you're not going to move. Well, the organism is not moving. So due to the fact that we had a nice warm spell this week, we're giving a kickstart to the digester, doing some things to get that in motion again. Honestly, if that's my only issue I had all for this 8 week window, Obviously, we had the issue with Aqua, their line breaking out because of cold weather, but the plant actually fared very well, which is good news. I have no problem. I'm sure we can go just give you stories for what has occurred this winter. Again, Ed did an excellent job at Thaddeus Stevens. We had a really good input. You know, we were questioning why is a wastewater treatment here for who we were going after. If we're going after mechanics, I think we had a good showing. I mean, we stopped everyone coming by. We were perfect. We were at the corner of the, so I got to talk to the head wastewater individual that runs the department. Their biggest issue is they used to have 25 students a semester. They're down to like 10. So they're concerned, and surprising or not, they just had I'm talking Thaddeus Stevens, even in conjunction, the gentleman that runs the program there works at approves our license, there's a committee that approves our license. DEP is really, really concerned. They had an emergency meeting actually 2 weeks ago, according to what he told me, that for every 2 operators leaving, we're only getting 1 at this point. So they asked me to be a part of a committee. We're meeting in March. There's 50 individuals across the state. They're going to start meeting on how we sell this program. Their program, how we sell it is, because to hear that statistic from DEP now, it's 2 to 1. Everyone's having a problem, but they're projected in 10 years, if it keeps going this rate, we're going to be in bad shape. So again, telling the story that we're up there, the students are like, what the heck's wastewater? And we lit their eyes up on. I think we lit up quite a few. You know, we can offer you a tremendous career. So,
We also pointed out that the mechanics really have to pay for a lot of their tools out of their pocket. And they said I said, did you start buying your own tools already? And they're like, yeah. I said, well, we provide all the tools. You just show up and get to work. So a lot of them were really interested in certain stuff like that, so.
So people are just not going into it?
they might, what we find in our industry, and Freddie, if you agree with this, that we're like a second career to most people.
That's
They
what I was
don't-
wondering.
You know, no one's thinking about wastewater going in any position.
Yeah.
And again, I'm thinking outside. I'm no problem. My wife's a school teacher. I said, I need to come up with these different, maybe we have to change the name instead of playing opera. I don't know. But we got to market, and that's the key, is getting every school, every possibility, just like we show up there. And hopefully, the first gentleman we met actually came around at the complete end and said, I'm basically interested, shook our hand again. So we hit home runs just like lighting up. They don't know
woman?
about it. Huh?
A woman?
No, we hit a home run.
Oh.
No, we had one woman.
I'm like, a woman, really?
The problem is a lot of kids, because you started at a lower rate in wastewater, rather go into construction, because they get overtime, and they get that, and kids chase that quick dollar. That $2 an hour means more than a retirement plan.
But it sounded, based on your report, that they were kind of lowballing themselves. So they were kind of looking at the salary of like, hey, that's more than I had thought I would make coming out of
Because
it.
5 years ago, the salary was that low. 5 years ago, it was $14 an hour to start in wastewater.
But they weren't even thinking their potential in wastewater. They were thinking their potential in mechanics or
Yeah.
whatever. So I think that's a really good
yeah, it's a
sign
good sign.
to just, and that's why I think maybe hitting the, like PW, the Montgomery County VOTEC school.
Yeah, we're gonna go out there Votex as well.
Because they're not thinking wastewater either.
They don't know about us.
No, I wouldn't have known. I mean,
Yeah.
How do you know? So I do think that marketing it, rebranding it with a different name might make it less icky.
In the major field, they're doing water reclamation facilities now. They're trying to push that as the title for all these, as
That's
opposed
nice.
to wastewater treatment. I don't, yeah, I would just, I don't know, yeah, I don't know, it's like a complete industry problem for sure. It's just like, so I don't know if we'll be able to solve it personally, although I think, yeah, branching out's a good one. It's smart to go to a place where you're gonna be needing those folks anyway, but I would imagine down the road that probably means if we're gonna, it's gonna have to be better, you're gonna have to keep increasing the pay, I would assume, so we'd have to start figuring out how to pay more for it if everybody's doing worse than that.
Mike and I talked this one, was like, I don't know how long, I know you went, but 6, 7 years. And we knew 6, 7 years ago, we were low, and you heard them say $14, $15 an hour. You're just not gonna, you can go to Walmart and earn more than that. And now now these plants are not, they are so technically based as they're coming up through it. With these new limits that they're producing, you're talking about, different limitations, how we can test. AI is gonna change this industry in 15 years. You'll have sensors like you're talking about. It's becoming very technical.
I think it's quicker than 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's happening quickly. So,
And the union, you'd always stick with union. Would you ever consider contract operations of any sort? I think I'd much prefer to grow our own staff and their skill set and make sure you've got it, but I don't know if that's something we'd ever want to look at.
I think they would have the same issues getting people.
Still the same,
And we're
yeah.
better off getting our own staff.
I'd much prefer.
You're better off with your own
I,
staff.
I certainly think that way. You run out of any talent pool.
I know I'm a subcontractor to many places, but what I see out there. Why is most of them are on scholarships there? We asked, what's your debt coming out? Most of them are on scholarship, which is good news to
Better,
them.
yeah.
But we threw that caveat out, because I don't know, it might be the right one, and we, as we discussed before,
Yep.
so.
I think you sold it well.
Sounds like it.
Because they're not thinking those long-term benefits, like, who would think at like 20 years old about a pension?
Well, he would stump when he said, what's your 3 criteria that you want of your position? And they look at us like, what are you talking about? Well, we want to hear them.
Right. I think that was a very insightful,
Yeah.
Well, we
the
heard a
write-up
lot,
was really good.
thank you. We heard a lot of, obviously, pay, but there was also like security. A lot of them said they wanted security.
Job security, yeah.
So they were the 2 biggest ones I recall here.
Yeah,
So-
job security was, and obviously in this industry, and
I
when you
think you made
explain.
them think out of the box, which is really what you wanted to do.
Okay.
Great.
So the other item, I know you gave myself a directive last month in regards to the auditor. I took a day or 2 to think about it. I reached out to Tina. My thoughts was due to the fact that we're in this year already, and we had a lot of transitional changes last year with stormwater, financial software. My personal opinion was to remain with Brinker and Simpson, and then proceed in a manner that if you want us to go out to request for proposals, proceed that way, in the next 2 or 3 months for next year. And again, I thought about it for a couple of days, and I talked to my staff, and I think that's the way I like to proceed. Now, if you tell me anything different, we can reboot it and go back, but that's the way I thought.
I mean, I think we have to listen to what your gut is telling us with all the
I think I took
changes
a
to
couple
be
days
able.
before I reached out to you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to think it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a good standard of practice and looking at kind of all of our vendors and doing kind of a complete overview of all the vendors, maybe this year, let's start the process in the summer and go through it, and then, we're not picking and choosing which one, we just go through it all, knock it all out.
That's
I think
fine.
that's a good idea.
You're okay with that?
I'm definitely fine with this one. I don't know. I mean, if we did everything, that might be, maybe we'd
Well, how many
stagger
do
it.
we
like-
have?
That's a good point, yeah.
What's that for?
Vendor, if we were looking at putting RFPs out for the
You'd have
vended
like a
services, we
handful.
got engineering, we got legal, we've got auditor.
It's be 3 to 4.
So
But I
let's
kind of agree with Jack that we don't want to
over.
flip everything at the same time.
Who said we're flipping? We're reviewing.
Right.
Or even, all the process of it. I mean, I'm not sure who reviews all that for us. But I agree, yeah, I'm definitely
We
fine
could do
keeping the.
2 and 2 if there's 4. We
Yeah,
could do 2
yeah,
and
yeah,
2.
something like that, yeah.
Something like that.
Just out of curiosity.
At least we're setting up a strategic plan.
Right.
Are there any other vendors that service the software? That provide support for the software? 'Cause
Well,
don't
we-
pay the software company, we pay.
We work in conjunction with the borough. I would have to look at even the software, like the Cassell,
Financial software we put
like
into
the
it.
Cassell that we just went to. I mean, we did research for that for a couple of years to determine which program we were going to go to.
Okay, but that's the program.
Yeah.
The software is one thing. The people who support it, there's somebody else, right?
Dallas Data, yeah.
Right. I knew beyond, I was going to say Drake, I don't know why.
I'm certain if we look into that, I'm sure there's other ones that Dallas may be just a local vendor
Right.
that supports Casella. I think they're out of Utah.
So maybe that's what we do, we put a schedule together of how to look at everything over the next 5 years or
Who we
whatever.
spend significant money with, and just standard.
Yeah, just like a standard
Vendor
operating.
analysis stuff.
Yeah.
you know.
Would it be year contracts, or do we want to go to like longer contracts, or, you know what I mean, or like, is there?
You probably look at the service and say, what does that kind of dictate?
Right.
And then what do you have planned, right? So if you've got something planned, like big projects, we're not gonna flip an engineer in the middle of big projects. Like a $2 million grant, I'm not sure that we wanna flip an engineer out in the middle of that, right?
Probably not.
Probably not. So I think that's all kind of the strategic planning that we think about. Yeah,
Reasonable.
okay.
So I would need direction for Brinker and Simpson to proceed, and it would be not to exceed the 50,000, the auditor at this point.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
Mike,
what
that's how
you're
to
looking
proceed.
for is approval from the board to go ahead and work up the Brinker Simpson to not exceed $50,000
Correct.
for the 2024 audit.
That's correct.
All in favor?
Yep. Okay.
Anyone opposed to that plan? You have your marching orders. Motion approved.
Okay. That's where we'll proceed, and that completes my report, and for approval for my report now.
All right. Do I have a motion to accept the executive director's report?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any old business?
I do not.
Okay, I think we want to conclude our meeting, and at the conclusion of our meeting, we're going to go back for a brief executive session to talk about personnel matter.
No?
Nope. Just
Potential litigation.
potential
let's call it.
litigation, a legal matter.
Yeah, we could actually stay here if you wanted.
Okay.
It's not, yeah.
All right.
Once it kills the recording or. Yeah,
Motion to approve, motion to close our meeting, adjourn our meeting.
Yes, I'll make a motion.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting concluded, adjourned.